Well, hey there. Let's just dive right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a pretty massive biblical command. Do it all for the glory of God. And man, does this completely challenge our natural human instincts. We're going to be looking at this strictly through the lens of Reformed Calvinist theology, which, gives us this incredibly profound framework for understanding human nature, God's sovereignty, and our ultimate purpose. Our anchoring text right out of the gate is 1 Corinthians 10:24. No one should seek their own good, but the good of others. Talk about flipping our normal self-centered default entirely upside down, right? So we're going to break down exactly what this means, summarize the key findings of this research, and figure out how to actually live it out.
To outline the big picture first, here is our roadmap. We'll start with the context of the Bible, move on to fleeing modern idolatry, compare two competing loyalties, look at living for God's glory, and finally, wrap up with some really practical steps for college students.
Okay, Section 1, the context of the Bible, setting the historical stage. You really can't grasp the full weight of a theological command without understanding the real-world situation that actually prompted it.
So in the Bible, Paul was addressing a super specific dilemma. It was basically a debate over whether eating food offered to idols was, participating in idol worship or just eating dinner. And this led to a massive theological imperative. See, the early Christians in Corinth lived in this deeply pagan society. Meat sold in the marketplace or served at public gatherings was often sacrificed to idols. So the believers were asking Paul, hey, is it a sin to eat this meat? Are we accidentally worshiping false idols? And Paul's answer, it totally shifts the focus away from the food itself and right onto the people around them. He asks, is there anyone watching who could be offended by what you do? This completely shifts the paradigm from simple dietary rules to community. It's about not seeking your own good, but seeking the good of others, doing absolutely everything for His glory.
Moving to Section 2, fleeing modern idolatry, or the danger of the demonic table. This historical food dilemma perfectly illustrates why we've got to transition to recognizing idolatry in our own lives today.
Now, we might not be debating marketplace meat anymore, but the underlying spiritual dangers, they are absolutely still there. Through a reformed lens, idolatry isn't just about bowing down to golden statues. As we define it here, idolatry is giving your presence, your time, your appetite, or your allegiance to something or someone other than God. And wow, is it subtle. For us today, an idol could be a relationship that kind of quietly compromises your values, or maybe a career goal that totally pushes the mission of God to the sidelines. Literally, it is anything that dethrones Him from the very center of your heart.
And partaking in the Lord's table is completely incompatible with these demonic influences. It demands that we literally flee from idolatry rather than trying to, negotiate with it. Paul uses incredibly strong language here. He doesn't say, hey, be careful around idolatry or just manage your idols better. No way. He says flee. When you take communion, you're partaking in the body and blood of Christ. So when you engage in idol worship, you're participating in something totally opposed to Him. The two are 100% mutually exclusive. You just cannot drink from both tables. And fleeing implies a sudden, decisive movement. If there's an idol in your life, you don't say, I'll just be a bit more careful next time. Nope. You run in the complete opposite direction. All right, Section 3. Two competing loyalties. Man's depravity versus God's glory. This is absolutely crucial, understanding the fierce clash between our natural state and our highest calling.
This is where the core tenets of our theology really come alive and demand a choice from us. We're looking at two totally competing theories here. First up, the theory of self. This perfectly illustrates our fallen nature. Because of human depravity, our instinct is literally always self-preservation, self-promotion, and seeking our own good, right? That totally aligns with participating in that demonic table, because it basically sets us as the ultimate authority. But then, in stark contrast, we have the theory of God's glory, or soli Deo gloria. This represents the transformed life. This theory demands that we have the mind of Jesus. He is the ultimate example of someone who did not seek his own good, but became nothing so that we could have everything. Living for His glory means deliberately choosing the good of others over your own convenience every single time.
Which brings us to Section 4, living for God's glory, soli Deo gloria in action. Let's zoom in further to see how this grand theological framework applies to those seemingly mundane, everyday choices.
Because it's one thing to understand this in theory, but it's a whole other ballgame to actually live it out. Paul testifies that even in our freedom, not everything is beneficial. Notice the absolute nature of his command here. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. This takes the whole concept of worship completely out of a Sunday morning church service and drops it right smack into your Tuesday afternoon study session, your lunch breaks, and your free time. Now, do it all for the glory of God sounds like an enormous, almost impossible challenge, right? But Paul makes it incredibly simple to evaluate. In every single decision, you just have to ask yourself, does this serve my good or the good of others? If you're a student or a leader, the goal is to build a community where everyone is genuinely seeking each other's good, treating even what they eat and drink as everyday ways to advance the gospel.
Okay, final section, Section 5, Steps for College Students, focusing on practical application on campus. Let's look at the implications of this data specifically for college life.
College life is packed with its own unique pressures, distractions, and competing loyalties. So the research actually outlines a really practical, step-by-step process for this. Step 1. Ask him to reveal competing idols. This takes serious humility, just praying and asking God to show you any table you've been sitting at alongside his. Step 2. Physically flee or remove the idol. This is pure action. Remember, flee means you gotta move. Is there a distraction, a bad habit, or maybe even a physical object you literally need to remove from your dorm room this week? Step 3. Choose the good of others in your decisions. This is that daily pivot, actively arranging your schedule to help as many people as possible. And step 4, make the commitment concrete. This ensures it isn't just wishful thinking. Don't just vaguely say, I'm going to be a nicer person. No, name the person on your dorm floor. Name the exact action you are going to take to serve their good today.
Now, I want you to consider your study habits and relationships this past week. Mentally fill in your own percentages here. Think about how you spent your free time, how you reacted to your roommate, or how you approached those dreaded group projects. Because of our depravity, the your own good category is naturally going to dominate. But what would happen to your campus, to your friend group, if you took verse 24 completely seriously? What if that others good category actually became the driving force of your entire college experience?
To finish up with a clear conclusion of the research, I want to leave you with this somewhat provocative question. What is one mundane, ordinary part of your daily life this semester that you haven't been connecting to God's glory? Seriously, what would doing that ordinary part of your semester for His glory actually look like in practice tomorrow? Maybe it's just walking to class, doing your laundry, or studying for a seemingly pointless prerequisite class. We've seen today that we absolutely cannot drink from two tables, that our natural instinct is just to serve ourselves, and that true freedom is found in seeking the good of others. So identify that one mundane thing today. Bring it to Him in prayer. Ask Him to give you the mind of Jesus, who became nothing so we could have everything, and start doing that one ordinary everyday task purely for His glory.